The Gatekeeper's Gambit, a tale of revenge and redemption. The air was thick with Pacific Northwest mist, the kind that clings to your skin and blurs the world into shades of gray. I'd driven 2 hours from Seattle to my family's cabin in Willow Creek, a secluded retreat at the end of an 800-meter private road. The final 200 meters belonged to me, a legacy from my grandfather, who bought the place in 1952 as a hunting hideaway. The first 600 meters wound through Willow Creek Estates, an upscale community of 47 homes governed by a homeowners association, HOA, that I'd soon learn was more iron fist than friendly neighbor. My name is David Harper, a 52-year-old game developer who just released Whispers of Loss, a game about grief and healing that had unexpectedly gone viral. The cabin was my sanctuary, a place to escape the noise of success and process the lingering ache of losing my wife, Emily, 3 years prior. The view from the cabin porch pine forest stretching toward Mount Rainier was a balm for my soul. But that morning, as the fog lifted, trouble arrived in the form of Margaret Kessler, the HOA president. Margaret appeared at my door like a storm cloud in a tailored blazer, her auburn hair immaculate despite the damp air. She clutched a clipboard, her knuckles white, a nervous tick I'd later connect to deeper troubles. "Mr. Harper," she said, her smile tight, "welcome to Willow Creek. I hear you're the game developer. My daughter, Lauren, adores Whispers of Loss. She plays it nonstop." I nodded, wary of her overly bright tone. "Thanks. Can I help you with something?" Her smile widened, but her eyes stayed cold. "I have a proposition. Lauren's been through a rough divorce. This cabin would be perfect for her to heal. I'm prepared to offer $200,000 cash." I almost chuckled. I'd paid $350,000 for the property, and its market value was closer to $450,000. "No, thank you," I said, starting to close the door. Margaret's hand shot out, stopping it. "Are you sure, Mr. Harper? Willow Creek has standards, and I enforce them." Her voice carried a veiled threat, sharp as a blade. I'd faced worse in online gaming forums, so I held my ground. "I'm sure. Have a good day, Margaret." As I shut the door, I caught a glint in her eyes, not anger, but excitement, like a predator sizing up prey. That afternoon, my neighbor, Jack Sullivan, stopped by with a 6-pack of local IPA and a warning. Jack, a 60-year-old retired firefighter with a weathered face and a limp from a bad fall on the job, settled onto my porch. "You just turned down Margaret Kessler," he said, handing me a beer. "That's either gutsy or reckless. I'm not sure which." "What's her story?" I asked, cracking open the bottle. Jack's expression darkened. "She's run off 3 families in 2 years. All refused to sell to her or her cronies. They were gone within 6 months, bankrupted, stressed to breaking. One even had a heart attack. She used to be a real estate attorney, lost her license for shady deals. Lately, she's been frantic. I overheard her on the phone, promising someone named Victor she'd have money soon. She sounded scared. That night, I couldn't shake the unease. At 3 a.m., my phone pinged with an email from the HOA. "Urgent security notice. Effective immediately, the Willow Creek access road will be gated for community safety. Implementation begins Monday, 6 a.m. Monday arrived with a drizzle that matched my mood. I loaded my SUV with supplies for a week at the cabin, mentally sketching the next chapter of my new game. But as I turned onto the access road, my coffee nearly spilled. A massive steel gate blocked the way, flanked by cameras and a keypad. A sign read, "Willow Creek HOA. Members only. Violators prosecuted." And there stood Margaret, in a navy raincoat, grinning like she'd already won. She held up a single key. "Good morning, Mr. Harper," she called, her voice syrupy. "You didn't register for HOA membership." "No membership, no access. Bylaw 52C. She checked her clipboard theatrically. "The fee is $60,000 upfront, plus $2,500 monthly. The deadline was yesterday." Then, with a flourish of cruelty, she snapped the key in half, letting the pieces fall to the wet pavement. "Oops," she said, her eyes gleaming. "Guess you'll need another way to your cabin." I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone and dialed Sarah Mitchell, a property lawyer I'd known since college. Her voice, warm but tense, answered. "David, it's been years. What's wrong?" I explained the situation while Margaret watched, probably thinking she'd outmaneuvered me. "I'll dig into this tonight," Sarah promised. "Nobody can legally block your property access. That's basic law." That evening, Jack invited me to an emergency HOA meeting as his guest. The Willow Creek Community Center smelled of stale coffee and tension. About 30 residents sat in folding chairs, most looking confused by the emergency. Margaret worked the room like a politician, her clipboard trembling as she spun a tale of prowlers, thefts, and drug activity on the access road. Her evidence? Grainy footage of delivery trucks and a stray deer. For your safety, she declared, clicking through empty slides, the gate is already installed. We can't wait for tragedy to strike. A young resident, Tom Rivera, raised his hand. Who approved the cost? That gate's tens of thousands. Margaret's smile tightened. The board, under emergency provisions. Safety has no price tag. She didn't mention the special assessment buried in her handout, a detail I'd spotted. Board members nodded along like puppets. Henry Coleman, a 62-year-old accountant, Linda Grayson, a fervent Margaret supporter, and old Walter Pierce, who gazed at Margaret like she hung the moon. When I stood to speak, the room hushed. I own the cabin at the road's end, I said. I'm not an HOA member. You have no right to block my access. Margaret's smile didn't falter. Mr. Harper, your right-of-way crosses our property. We can regulate it for safety. Join us $60,000 up front, $2,500 monthly or find another way to your cabin. The room buzzed with whispers. Jack caught my eye, mouthing, trap. After the meeting, residents approached me quietly. She's been after your place for months, said Ellen Gwen, a retired librarian. Ever since you refused her offer, she's obsessed. Mike Torres, a contractor, added, that gate? Rush job, no permits, paid in cash over the weekend. Margaret had miscalculated. She didn't know my grandfather was a meticulous record keeper. By dawn, Sarah trekked through the forest to my cabin, avoiding the blocked road, her arms full of documents. Your grandfather was brilliant, she said, spreading papers on my table. The 1952 easement, Clause 8. If access is unreasonably impeded, you can reclaim the full 200 meters of road. I scanned the faded text, my heart racing. So, I can block their road? Sarah grinned. You own that stretch. It's their only way to the highway. Margaret's played herself. Something flickered in Sarah's eyes. Guilt. Maybe, but she pushed on. We need a plan. Document every interaction, hire a crew to install your gate, and do you have another way to your cabin? I smiled, the first real one since Margaret's visit. I bought the adjacent land 6 months ago. Emily always said to have an exit strategy. I showed Sarah a satellite view of my private road, a $60,000 investment connecting my cabin to the highway. I planned for peace, but game design taught me, players will break your system. Always have multiple solutions. Sarah's expression shifted, her eyes darting to a photo of Emily on my mantle. David, about Emily, there's something I need to tell you. Not now, I said, cutting her off. Let's focus. That evening, Jack shared more. Margaret's desperate. I saw her crying in her car, promising someone money soon. And Carlos Mendez, the old security guard she fired? He's got 20 years of notebooks, every shady deal, every forced sale. Sarah uncovered more. My land held Native American artifacts from the 1970s, potentially blocking development. The pieces were falling into place. Margaret wasn't just after my cabin, she was entangled in something bigger, and I was about to turn her game against her. The morning mist hadn't yet burned off when I set my plan in motion. Margaret Kessler's steel gate still stood like a smug sentinel, blocking my access to the cabin, but I wasn't the type to fold. Years of designing games had taught me to anticipate every move, to build traps within traps. Margaret thought she'd cornered me, but she'd just stepped into mine. By 5 a.m., I'd hired a construction crew recommended by Mike Torres, the contractor who'd tipped me off about Margaret's rushed gate job. They worked through the night, and by dawn, a gleaming automated gate stood at the exact boundary of my 200-meter stretch of road. This wasn't just any gate. I'd gone all in. AI-powered license plate readers, 360-degree security cameras, a two-way speaker system, and a payment terminal that accepted everything from credit cards to Bitcoin. Maybe I'd overdone it, but when you're making a statement, you don't half-ass it. I sat in a camping chair beside my new gate, laptop open, sipping coffee as the first rays of sunlight hit Willow Creek Estates. I was tweaking the villain in my new game, a controlling HOA president with a hidden agenda when the chaos began. By 6:30 a.m., cars lined up on Pine Valley Drive, horns blaring. Parents shouted about missed meetings, kids wailed in backseats, and a school bus was trapped behind a delivery van, its driver radioing in about 47 late students. Margaret screeched up in her BMW, still in silk pajamas, mascara smudged from a sleepless night. "This is illegal," she shrieked, pounding her steering wheel. "You can't block our road." I leaned back, calm as ever. "Good morning, Margaret. This is my property line. Per the 1952 easement, Clause 8, when you blocked my access, I reclaimed my 200 meters. This gate's staying." "But emergency vehicles," she sputtered, her face turning a shade of red that clashed with her pajamas. "Already filed an alternate route with the county," I said. "Smith Creek Road adds 15 minutes to response time. Perfectly legal." I gestured to the payment terminal. "I'm not heartless. $200 per vehicle to pass. Or take the scenic detour, only adds 20 minutes to your commute." The crowd turned on Margaret like a wildfire. Susan Miller, a nurse with 3 kids, was first. "My son's medication is at home. If it spoils, I'll sue this HOA into the ground." Greg Hansen, a high school coach, joined in. "I've got a team waiting for practice. My job's on the line because of your stunt." Even soft-spoken Pastor Evans raised his voice. "Margaret, this is insanity. Open his gate now." Jack Sullivan, the retired firefighter, stepped forward, his voice booming like he was back at the station. "Margaret, he's within his rights. You caused this. Fix it." 2 sheriff's deputies arrived, looking like they'd rather be fishing. After reviewing my documents and making calls, the older one turned to Margaret. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. Mr. Harper's got the law on his side. Unless you can prove otherwise, we're out." Margaret's composure cracked. Her hands shook so badly she dropped her phone twice, fumbling for her lawyer's number. "You don't understand," she screamed at the crowd. "I need that cabin. I need the money." She froze, realizing she'd said too much. "Need?" I stood, suddenly alert. "Why do you need my cabin, Margaret?" Her face paled beneath the smeared makeup. My laptop screen showed drone footage. I'd been recording cars gridlocked, residents fuming, and my private road snaking through the adjacent land to the highway. Jack whistled. "You built an escape route before the fight even started. That's some next-level planning. Game design 101, I said. Never build a puzzle with one solution. Players hate that." Margaret's phone rang, and her expression went from pale to ghostly. She stepped away, but my cameras caught her words. "Victor, please. Just 48 hours. I'll get the cabin." "No, don't touch Lauren. She's not part of this." The call ended, and she stood frozen, staring at her phone. Then Lauren Kessler stepped out of an Uber, dragging a suitcase. The 30-year-old graphic designer, back from Portland, looked exhausted, her face streaked with tears. She held up her phone, showing Margaret a photo of her apartment door, spray-painted with "Mamos. You pay." Margaret's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the wet asphalt. "Lauren, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I thought I could win it back. I thought I could fix it." Lauren's voice broke. "Fix what, Mom? They know where I live. They know where I work. What did you do?" The crowd fell silent, sensing this was no longer just about a gate. A black SUV rumbled up, stopping at a distance. The tinted window cracked open, revealing a hand making a phone gesture. Margaret's phone rang again. She answered, listened for 10 seconds, then hung up. 48 hours, she whispered. "They're giving me 48 hours. Lauren's voice cut through the air. "Mama's the mafia, $250,000. They'll kill me if she doesn't pay." The words hung like a guillotine. Margaret curled into herself, a broken figure on the ground, no longer the tyrant who'd ruled Willow Creek. Through my cameras, I saw it all in high definition: Margaret's tears, the crowd's shock, my reflection in the gate steel. Last night, while coding, I noticed something. The villain in my game, a gatekeeper with auburn hair and a clipboard, was Margaret. My subconscious had been screaming what my mind hadn't yet pieced together. Lauren's story poured out. She'd found her mother's laptop last month during a visit. The browser history told a grim tale: online poker sites, loan applications, searches for quick cash. It started after Dad left, Lauren said, helping Margaret up. She said it was just fun, a way to unwind. Then she chased losses: credit cards, loans, and loan sharks. Finally, the Costa family. Henry Coleman, the quiet accountant, exploded. I knew it. His face reddened with years of pin-up fury. "She's been blackmailing me for 6 years. Photos of me with someone not my wife. Every time I pushed back, she threatened to ruin me." Linda Grayson confessed next, tears streaming. "I took 10% on every forced sale. My daughter needed surgery. I told myself it was for a good cause, but I knew it was wrong. Jack pulled me aside, his hands trembling not from fear, but something deeper. David, about Emily's death, he pulled a USB drive from his jacket. My truck's dashcam caught it all. I've carried this for 3 years, too scared to speak up. My world tilted. You know who killed her? Jack's voice cracked, the tough firefighter crumbling. Mark Kessler, Margaret's brother. Drunk, coming from the casino. And someone else was in the car. Before he could finish, Sarah grabbed my arm, her face pale. David, I can't keep this secret anymore. Jack's right. I was in the car with Mark that night. The confession hit like a sledgehammer. Sarah Mitchell, my college friend, my lawyer, had been there when Emily died. It was a bar association conference, she said, words tumbling out. Mark was a guest speaker. We drank too much. He offered to drive me home. I should have stopped him, but I was drunk too. When we hit Emily's car, I called 911, tried CPR, but she was gone. Mark fled. I stayed but never told them about him. I was a coward, and I've loved you since college. I couldn't face you hating me. The revelations came too fast. Margaret had covered for her brother. Sarah had hidden her guilt for 3 years. Jack had evidence, but was paralyzed by past trauma. He had once reported a colleague for misconduct, only to be ignored, the man later dying by suicide. The weight of these secrets pressed down on everyone. Margaret, still on her knees, pulled up her phone. There's more, she said, voice hollow. Lauren, the cabin wasn't for you. She showed emails from Pinnacle Properties, offering $800,000 for my cabin, the final piece for a massive resort. Margaret planned to buy it for $200,000 and flip it for a $600,000 profit. But Lauren's discovery was worse. Pinnacle's a front, she said. It traces back to the cost of family. They're laundering money through fake developments. Margaret nodded, defeated. I found out too late. I already owed Victor Costa. He said delivering the cabin would clear my debt. But you wouldn't sell, David. So I got desperate, stole from HOA funds to make payments. Sarah's research clicked into place. The artifacts on your land, she said. Native American relics from the 1970s. If verified, your property becomes protected. No development possible. Margaret laughed bitterly. You think Victor cares about artifacts? He's washing $60 million through fake projects. If I don't deliver, she looked at Lauren, raw fear in her eyes. He'll hurt her. Sarah showed me a photo on her phone timestamp the night Emily died, 11:42 p.m., at the intersection. She sat in the passenger seat, Mark driving, both drunk. In the rearview mirror, Emily's headlights approached. I quit law because I couldn't defend others while hiding my crime, Sarah whispered. Helping you was my way to atone. The grief I'd buried for 3 years roared back, mixed with rage so fierce it burned. I walked to my gate's control booth, locked myself inside, and let the tears come. Through the glass, I saw the chaos residents arguing, Margaret sobbing, Lauren staring into the distance. Emily was gone, and nothing would change that. The control booth's bulletproof glass muffled the chaos outside, but it couldn't shield me from the storm inside. Sarah's confession about the night Emily died had ripped open a wound I'd spent 3 years stitching closed. Margaret's desperation, Lauren's fear, and Jack's hidden evidence swirled in my mind, each revelation a fresh cut. I sat there, staring at the drone footage on my laptop, cars gridlocked, residents shouting. Margaret crumpled on the asphalt while grief and rage battled for control. Then came a knock. Lauren Kessler stood outside, her face streaked with tears, but her jaw set. Mr. Harper, I know you've got no reason to trust me, but there's something else you need to know. Against every instinct, I opened the door. She didn't waste time. My mom's a monster. I get that now. But there's a kid, Tommy Costa, Victor's grandson. He's 12, loves your game, whispers of loss. It got him through his mom's death leukemia 2 years ago. He wants to make games like you someday. Mom's mess, Victor's crimes don't let them ruin Tommy's future. Her words hit hard. Emily had always believed in second chances, in finding light in the darkest places. I thought of her last words to me. Create something beautiful from the pain. What do you want me to do? I asked. Lauren showed me a video on her phone. Tommy, a skinny kid with his grandfather's sharp eyes but none of his menace, sat in front of a webcam. Whispers of loss showed me it's okay to hurt, he said. Grief's just love with nowhere to go. I want to make games that help people like that. His sincerity was disarming, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Victor asked me to show you this, Lauren said. If anything happens to him, he wants you to mentor Tommy. Not for him, for a kid who wants to build something good. I glanced outside. The black SUV was still there, engine idling. Victor Costa's window cracked open again, and he nodded once, a grandfather's plea cutting through his criminal facade. I didn't respond, but Lauren's request planted a seed. Emily would have seen the kid, not the crime family. Could I? The morning air was split by sirens. FBI. Nobody move. Agents swarmed like hornets, emerging from unmarked vans, rappelling from helicopters that appeared over the pines, even rising from the crowd in plainclothes. A woman with steel gray hair and eyes to match held up her badge. Victor Costa, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Pinnacle Properties, Willow Creek corruption, all of it. Victor laughed, a low, bitter sound. Well, that's inconvenient timing. He raised his hands, his bodyguards mirroring him. The agent turned to Margaret. Mrs. Kessler, we have your laptop, every email, every transaction with the Costa family. Cooperate and testify, or join Mr. Costa in federal prison. Your call. Margaret collapsed again, but Lauren didn't move to help. You ruined everything, she said, her voice steady despite her tears. Our family, our name, for what? Poker and empty promises. The lead agent, Special Agent Karen Holt, approached me privately as her team cuffed Victor. Mr. Harper, we've been tracking Pinnacle for 2 years. Your gate forced their hand, made them show themselves. Perfect timing. She paused, her eyes softening. We found something else in Margaret's files. A contract, dated a week before your wife's accident. A $50,000 payment to Mark Kessler for services. We can't prove it was a hit, but... The implication landed like a punch. Emily's death may be not an accident, but murder. My legs buckled, and I sank to the pavement. Sarah knelt beside me, her guilt forgotten in the face of this new horror. David, I swear I didn't know. Mark said he was at the casino, drunk. I never thought. I couldn't hear her. The grief I'd managed for 3 years roared back, laced with a fury so raw it felt like it could burn Willow Creek to ash. I stumbled back to the control booth, locking myself in again. Through the glass, I watched the FBI haul Victor and his men away. Margaret was being questioned, her hands cuffed. The crowd milled, some whispering, others openly staring. Inside, I broke. For the first time since the hospital, I let myself feel the full weight of Emily's loss. She was gone, possibly murdered. Mark was dead, killed in a bar fight a year after the crash. The conspirators were being arrested, but it didn't bring her back. Nothing would. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time blurred. Another knock came. It was Jack, his face etched with pain. David, I should have shown you the dash cam sooner. After what happened in the fire department reporting a guy who later took his own life, I couldn't face it. But you deserve the truth. He handed me the USB drive. It's all there. Mark driving, Sarah in the passenger seat, Emily's car in the rear view. I'm sorry. I didn't look at him. Why now? Because you're fighting for all of us, he said. Margaret's been bleeding this community dry. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Sarah hovered nearby, her eyes red. David, I'll testify. About Mark, the crash, everything. I'll face whatever comes. I owe you that. I didn't respond. The revelations were piling up, each one a brick in a wall I couldn't climb. But Emily's voice echoed, create something beautiful. Could anything beautiful come from this mess? The FBI's operation wound down, agents loading evidence into vans. Karen Holt approached again. Mr. Harper, we need your cooperation. Your documents, your footage, it's key to nailing Costa and Kessler. But I heard what Lauren said about the kid, Tommy. You've got conditions? I stepped out of the booth, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll testify, provide everything. But I want terms. Margaret gets rehab for her gambling addiction as part of any plea deal. Sarah does pro bono work for families of DUI victims. And Tommy Costa gets coding classes, with me as his mentor. I can't bring Emily back, but I can stop this cycle of pain from spreading. Holt nodded slowly. We can work with that. As the crowd dispersed, Sarah approached, hesitant. David, I know forgiveness isn't on the table. Not now, maybe not ever. But every day, I think of Emily. Every case I take, every person I help, it's for her. I looked at her, seeing not the confident lawyer but a woman broken by her secrets. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. Not yet. Emily believed in second chances. Prove you deserve one. Help enough people, and maybe we'll both find peace. The morning that began with my gate as a weapon had become something else, a reckoning. Willow Creek wasn't just a community of manicured lawns and HOA fees. It was a web of lies, guilt, and desperation. But as I watched the residents angry, scared, but united, saw a flicker of what Emily would have recognized, the start of healing. Margaret was led away, not in cuffs but under supervision, her face a mask of shame. Lauren stood alone, staring at the gate that had sparked it all. Jack clapped my shoulder. You turned her trap against her, David. But what now? I didn't have an answer yet. The drone footage still played on my laptop, capturing the moment Victor's SUV pulled away, Margaret's breakdown, and Lauren's plea. My game's villain stared back from the code, a digital Margaret, but now I wondered if she was the real enemy or just a pawn in a bigger game. As the sun climbed higher, I walked to the gate, its steel gleaming. It was a symbol of my revenge, but maybe it could be more. Emily's words looped in my mind. Create something beautiful. I wasn't there yet, but for the first time in 3 years, I felt a spark of purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about a community poisoned by secrets, and maybe, just maybe, about finding a way to heal. The sun was setting over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the pines as I sat on my cabin porch, the weight of the morning's events still pressing on my chest. The FBI had cleared out, taking Victor Costa and his men in handcuffs, while Margaret Kessler was under house arrest, pinning her decision to cooperate. Lauren's plea for Tommy, Sarah's confession about Emily's death, and the hint that it might have been murder had left me raw. But something else stirred beneath the pine, a sense that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. Emily's voice echoed, create something beautiful from the pain. I wasn't sure how, but I knew I had to try. The next morning, I met with Special Agent Karen Holt at a diner in town. Over coffee that tasted like regret, she laid out the case. Pinnacle Properties was a front for the Costa family's $60 million money laundering scheme, she said. Margaret was their inside woman, pushing homeowners to sell for cheap so Pinnacle could flip the land for fake resort projects. Your cabin was the linchpin. Its historical artifacts would have tanked their plans if verified. What about Emily? I asked, my voice tight. That contract with Mark Kessler. Holt's eyes softened. We're investigating. The $50,000 payment to Mark looks suspicious, but without hard evidence, we can't call it a hit. Mark's dead, so we may never know. But Margaret's emails show she knew about the crash and covered for her brother. She's not innocent. I nodded, gripping my mug. What happens to her now? She's agreed to testify against Costa in exchange for a plea deal, rehab, probation, no prison. Lauren pushed her to take it. The kid's tougher than she looks. And Tommy Costa? I asked, thinking of Lauren's video. Holt shrugged. He's with his aunt now. Victor's locked up for good, but the kid's clean. Your offer to mentor him? That's your call. He's got no one else pushing him towards something better. Back at the cabin, I found Jack Sullivan waiting with a thermos of coffee and a grim smile. You stirred up a hornet's nest, Harper, he said, pouring me a cup. But you also broke Margaret's grip on this place. Folks are talking about electing me HOA president to clean up the mess. You'd be good at it, I said. No more gates, no more secrets. Jack chuckled, but his eyes were serious. I saw Carlos Mendez, the old security guard, yesterday. His notebooks are gold. Every shady deal Margaret pulled, every resident she pressured, he documented it all. He's handing them over to the FBI. This place is going to change. Change was already happening. That afternoon, Susan Miller, the nurse who'd confronted Margaret, stopped by with a casserole and an apology. I didn't know how deep this went, she said. We all let Margaret run things too long. Thanks for standing up to her. Others followed, Ellen Gwynn, Greg Hansen, even Pastor Evans, each with stories of Margaret's intimidation. Ellen admitted she'd nearly sold her home after Margaret spread rumors about her finances. Greg said his sister had been pressured into a bad deal 2 years ago, leaving her bankrupt. The community was waking up, and my gate, once a symbol of defiance, was becoming something else, a spark for truth. Sarah called that evening, her voice hesitant. David, I'm starting a pro bono clinic for DUI victims' families, like you suggested. It won't undo what I did, but it's a start. Can I keep you updated? Do the work, I said, my tone flat. Show me you mean it. She didn't push, and I hung up, still wrestling with her betrayal. Emily's belief in second chances felt like a challenge I wasn't ready to meet, but I couldn't ignore it either. The next week, I met Tommy Costa at a community center in town. He was small for 12, with a mop of dark hair and eyes that carried too much weight for a kid. Mr. Harper, he said, clutching a worn laptop, whispers of loss saved me after Mom died. I want to make games like that. Can you teach me? I saw Emily in his earnestness and his need to create something good from loss. We'll start with the basics, I said. Coding's like building a world one line at a time. Tommy grinned, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was what Emily meant, Beauty from pain, one small step at a time. Meanwhile, Willow Creek was transforming. Jack organized a community meeting, and residents voted unanimously to remove Margaret's gate. They also passed a new rule: no access restrictions without 100% approval. Jack was elected HOA president, promising transparency. No more backroom deals, he told the crowd. This is our home, not a chessboard. Lauren reached out, too. She was staying in town, helping her mother through rehab. Mom's 30 days sober, she said over coffee at my cabin. It's not easy, but she's trying. I'm sorry for what she did to you, David. It's not your fault, I said. You stood up to her. That took guts. She nodded, tears welling. I thought I could save her by coming back. But I think maybe we're saving each other. The archaeological survey of my land confirmed Sarah's findings: Native American artifacts from the 17th century, remnants of a ceremonial ground. The designation made Willow Creek untouchable for development, a fact that spread like wildfire. Residents began to see the land not as property, but as a legacy, something worth protecting. I started working on my new game, Second Chances, inspired by the chaos and redemption unfolding around me. Unlike Whispers of Loss, which wrestled with grief, this game was about forgiveness. Every character, no matter how flawed, had a path to redemption if they chose it. Coding felt like therapy, a way to process the betrayals and possibilities of Willow Creek. One evening, as I worked, a letter arrived from Victor Costa, postmarked from federal prison. Harper, it read, you gave Tommy something I never could: a future without blood. I owe you a debt I can't repay. If you ever need a favor, I still have connections. I burned the letter. Some doors were better left closed. Then came the call from Margaret. She was at a rehab center, her voice shaky but clear. David, I'm 60 days sober. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to make things right. I'm helping another addict here. She's like I was, chasing the next win. Thank you for pushing me to this point. I didn't know how to respond. Her actions had nearly destroyed me, yet here she was, trying to rebuild. Keep at it, I said finally. Prove it's not just words. A month later, I met Ellen Rodriguez, a veterinarian who'd moved to Willow Creek after the drama settled. She came to treat an injured owl on my property, her calm presence a stark contrast to the chaos of weeks past. You're good with broken things, she said, watching me steady the bird. Even when they snap at you. We started talking coffee, hikes, even gaming sessions where she laughed at her terrible aim. Ellen didn't try to fix my grief or replace Emily. She just existed beside me, a quiet anchor. Jack noticed it one day, grinning over beers. Emily would have liked her, he said. Someone who doesn't push, just stays. He was right. Ellen was a new chapter, not a rewrite. And as we grew closer, I felt something I hadn't in years: the possibility of joy. The community began hosting monthly gatherings on my land, the gate now a quirky landmark where kids took selfies, calling it the Second Chance Gate. Margaret attended, staying on the edges, helping with cleanup but not pushing for acceptance. Forgiveness, I realized, was a process, not a switch. Tommy's coding skills grew fast. He built a simple app for kids with incarcerated parents, a way to send secure video messages. Mr. Harper, he asked one day, do you think Grandpa would be proud? I think he'd be proud you're choosing a different path, I said, and meant it. Sarah sent updates on her clinic, each email detailing families she'd helped. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just shared her work. I read them, noting the lives she touched, but I wasn't ready to reply. Not yet. As winter settled over Willow Creek, I stood by the gate one evening, watching snow dust the pines. The community was healing up perfectly, but honestly. Margaret was rebuilding, one sober day at a time. Lauren was finding her strength. Tommy was coding a future free of his family's shadow. And I was learning to live again, not just for me, but for the people Emily would have wanted me to help. The gate, once my weapon, was now a symbol of something bigger. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't afraid to find out. A year had passed since the morning my gate turned Willow Creek upside down. The Pacific Northwest spring painted the pines in vibrant green, and the air carried the promise of renewal. I sat on my cabin porch, the place that was meant to be my escape but had become the heart of a transformed community. The local news played on my laptop, a headline scrolling. Costa crime family convicted in $60 million money laundering scheme. The report detailed how my gate stunt had exposed Pinnacle properties, leading to 147 years of combined prison sentences for Victor Costa and his associates. I shut the laptop. I'd lived through enough drama to last a lifetime. Willow Creek had changed in ways I hadn't imagined. Jack Sullivan, now HOA president, had torn down Margaret's Gate and replaced it with a simple sign, "Welcome to Willow Creek, a community of second chances." Monthly barbecues on my land were now a tradition, with kids playing, neighbors laughing, and even Margaret Kessler, 120 days sober, helping with setup. She didn't linger, always leaving early, but her presence was a quiet testament to her effort. Redemption's a daily choice, she told me last week, handing out lemonade. Some days I stumble, but I keep showing up. Her daughter, Lauren, had stayed in town, working as a graphic designer and rebuilding their relationship. "Mom's trying," Lauren said at one barbecue, watching Margaret fold napkins. "She's not the woman who blocked your road anymore. Neither am I." Their bond was fragile but growing, proof that even the deepest wounds could scar over with time. Sarah Mitchell threw herself into her pro bono clinic with a ferocity that surprised even her. She'd helped 60 families in a year, securing settlements for DUI victims and counseling those grappling with loss. Her emails arrived monthly, detailing her work without asking for approval. "Every case is for Emily," she wrote in her last one. "I can't undo the past, but I'm shaping the future." I hadn't replied, but I read every word, noting the lives she touched. Forgiveness wasn't there yet, but Emily's belief in second chances kept the door ajar. The Archaeological Survey had finalized Willow Creek's status as a historical site, a 17th-century Native American ceremonial ground. No resort could ever break this land. Ellen Rodriguez and I designed a garden with sage and sweetgrass, plants used in ancient healing rituals. "Full circle," Ellen said, her hands in the soil. "From pain to peace, just like the ancestors intended." Her pregnancy was progressing, and we'd chosen a name, Rachel, after my mother, not Emily, but a nod to love that endures. Ellen's calm presence grounded me, a reminder that life could grow again, even after loss. Tommy Costa, now 14, was a coding prodigy. His app for kids with incarcerated parents had 2 million downloads, a simple platform for secure video messages that gave hope to families torn apart. "Mr. Harper," he said one afternoon, debugging code at my kitchen table, "I want to change my last name to Harper. You gave me a future my family couldn't." I shook my head gently. "You don't need my name, Tommy. You're building your legacy. Honor where you came from, but choose where you're going." He nodded, eyes bright, and I saw Emily's spirit in his determination to create something good. Victor Costa called from prison, his voice crackling on a monitored line. "You gave Tommy what I never could," he said. "A path without blood." "Thank you." I hung up, uneasy but moved. Even a man like Victor could feel gratitude, however flawed. My new game, Second Chances, launched to critical acclaim. Players navigated a world where every character, thieves, liars, even tyrants, had a path to redemption. Some reviewers called it too forgiving. Others praised its humanity. My favorite review came from a player. "I expected revenge. Instead, I found hope." The game hid an Easter egg. Forgive every character, and you unlocked a secret Ndinga cabin in the woods, surrounded by a community healing together. It was my story, coded into pixels. A public television station approached us for a documentary, not about the scandal, but about Willow Creek's transformation. The residents voted to participate, with all proceeds funding addiction recovery programs. Margaret was the loudest advocate. "If my mistakes help one person," she said, "maybe this wasn't all for nothing." Lauren insisted Margaret play herself, joking, "She's already a natural for the role." The first anniversary of the Gate incident became a community festival, drawing visitors from across Washington. Teens snapped selfies at the Second Chance Gate, now adorned with flowers and signs reading "Healing Ground, all welcome." Margaret spoke about addiction, her voice raw but honest. Jack shared his journey with PTSD, emphasizing the power of truth. Sarah talked about living with guilt and making amends. Lauren discussed supporting loved ones through recovery. I closed the event, speaking of forgiveness not as absolution, but as freedom from anger's weight. "Broken things can heal," I told the crowd. "Crashed gates can become open doors." Emily knew that. It just took us longer to learn. The applause was warm, not for me, but for the community we become. That night, as Ellen slept, her hand resting on her growing belly, I worked on Hope's Echo, a sequel to Second Chances. Players rebuilt after loss, crafting communities from shattered pieces. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Harper, I'm struggling with addiction. Saw your story on the news. Can I visit? T. Wilson." I replied, "The gate's always open. This is healing ground. Welcome." The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built a gate to keep people out and ended up creating a place that drew them in. The cabin meant for isolation had become a hub of connection. The revenge I'd planned had morphed into justice, and justice into healing. Emily's words had guided me here, to a life I hadn't expected but was grateful for. A year later, Willow Creek was unrecognizable not in its streets or homes, but in its spirit. The gate, once a battleground, was a landmark where visitors left notes of hope. Margaret, nearing her 2-year sobriety chip, worked at a rehab center, mentoring others. "I was you," she told a new patient, thinking I could win it all back. "There's another way." Sarah's clinic had expanded, serving 100 families. She'd started dating a librarian, someone steady, she wrote, who doesn't carry my baggage. Her emails still came, and I'd begun replying, short but civil. "Keep proving Emily right," I wrote once. It was enough for now. Tommy's latest game, a story about kids choosing hope over despair, won a National Youth Coding Award. He dedicated it to me, calling me Uncle D in his speech. I teared up, thinking of the boy who'd found a path despite his family's shadow. Ellen gave birth to our daughter, Rachel, in the spring. Holding her, I felt Emily's presence not as a ghost, but as a quiet blessing. "You'd like this," I whispered, rocking Rachel by the cabin window. We made something beautiful. The documentary aired, telling Willow Creek's story, not just the crime, but the redemption. Viewers wrote in, sharing their struggles with addiction, guilt, and forgiveness. One letter stood out. "Your gate showed me I can open doors I thought were locked forever. Thank you." As I stood by the gate one evening, Rachel in my arms, Ellen beside me, I looked at the community we'd built. Jack waved from the barbecue. Tommy coded on a picnic table, Lauren laughed with neighbors, and Margaret stacked chairs, her smile tentative but real. This was healing ground, not just for me, but for everyone who'd faced their demons here. The path from Margaret's snapped key to this moment had been brutal, full of truths I hadn't wanted and losses I couldn't undo. But it led here to a new family, a community reborn, and a purpose I hadn't known I needed. Second chances aren't about forgetting, I thought, watching the sunset. They're about choosing a better future. What do you think of Willow Creek's journey from revenge to redemption? Have you faced moments of injustice or violence in your life that tested your ability to forgive? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you stand on finding peace after pain. Your story could inspire someone else to open their gate to healing.